In this episode, we are going to be talking about why long-term couples break up. While putting on the finishing touches of my makeup, why is it not the full makeup routine, you ask? Because I realized that as I was putting my makeup earlier, I forgot to press the record button. So there you go. Such is life. Yep, so I'm at a stage of life now where there are so many weddings to attend because everyone's getting married, right? And on the flip side, I have also had a few friends who have been in long-term relationships who have broken up. So let's explore the reasons why long-term couples break up at this juncture. So generally, long-term relationships can be anywhere from say 5, 6, 7 years, and some of them breaking up shortly after marriage. And as you guys know, yours truly has also left a relationship that was nearly 8 years long. And like one of my friends asked, how do you drink a coffee for so many years before realizing that you don't like that coffee? Wild. First, at risk of stating the obvious, being in a relationship is not as straightforward as drinking coffee. But from what I've observed, there are really 3 main reasons why long-term couples break up. And for a number of you guys who are considering whether to stay in a relationship or whether to leave it, these are also 3 reasons which you can rephrase as 3 questions to decide whether you should stay or whether you should leave. So the first reason is that people grow with time, but people don't necessarily grow in directions that keep them together. So in your early years, like in your late 20s or even in your teens, life is a lot more simplistic, right? You and your partner maybe just study together, work together, eat together, date together, and maybe both of you talk about having kids before and you all know that you all want to have kids sometime away in the far, far distant future. As you really approach that marital age, life becomes a lot more concrete. Your priorities around life may have shifted. You might have discovered new interests throughout the relationship, and some of you might want to pursue that interest. One of them might still prefer flexibility to pursue their own individual interests, whereas the other is all ready to lead a life of stability. Therefore, that common future which you envisioned many, many years ago might only exist in fiction now. A major example is kids, right? So when you're in your teens, you might think, oh, 28, 27, such an old age. I'm going to have kids by then. I'm going to get married by 30. Going to have 2 kids by 31. But then when you're really in your late 20s or when at that stage, you realize that life is so interesting. Why would I or am I really ready to give up all of that to live and to devote my time, my resources, and to make all those sacrifices for someone who will tear my vagina? So that's from the woman's side, right? Whereas from the guy's side, what I've heard from some of my friends is that maybe the guy, right, starts out by being absolutely neutral. So he's like, baby, if you want to have kids, I'm okay. But then as the guy progresses throughout his 20s and reaches his 30s, he's just like, you know what? A kid is way too much sacrifice because I have always been neutral and ambivalent, and now I very much prefer to concentrate on my career and other endeavors. And then, boom. So suddenly one party wants to have children, the other party doesn't want to have children, even though many, many years ago when they discussed, both of them wanted to have children. So for those people who are thinking of whether to stay or to leave, what you really got to be asking yourself is whether you and your partner are growing in directions that will allow you all to stay together in the long run, or are you all really on just different trajectories altogether? So you really need to ask yourself, right, how much of yourself are you giving up in this relationship? And that brings us to the second reason, that a lot of long-term couples break up eventually because they didn't know themselves well enough when they first started out. Okay, I know what you're thinking. You're like, Shalene, what do you mean, right? Such an amateur point. What do you mean you don't know yourself, right? But hear me out, okay? It's very much a valid point because as we said earlier, many of these long-term relationships start out in the late teens or early 20s. What does that mean? It means that you have essentially chosen each other before you truly even understood what you want in life. And you might also not have understood what kind of lifestyle you wanted to lead. It's not all about the material aspect, right? It could be a life of stability versus a life of adventure. So maybe at the start, you subscribe to the notion that you need to have a family by 30, you need to be advancing your career. But then when you reach your late 20s or even your early 30s, you realize that, holy shit, life offers so much varied experiences. I don't need to be subscribing what the government has been telling me to do. Another example may be in terms of the lifestyle you thought you wanted. So when you're young, maybe you thought that, well, wealth is above everything, so I need to have a rich partner, someone that's wealthy, or at least someone of a certain earning capability. For that, you're willing to compromise on so many other aspects. For example, even if it's not willing to meet your emotional needs, you kind of can close an eye and then be like, okay, you know what, I'll just deal with it, because he's able to provide in so many other aspects, right? But as this goes on, and when you yourself are able to fulfill the material wants, you kind of realize that that emotional aspect which your partner is lacking in is severely compromising on your happiness level, and you basically can't deal with it for your whole life. So basically, you realize that emotionally you're incompatible. Yeah, and trust me when I say that can cause a lot of distress. And also, when you were young, you might have naively believed that you can compromise on certain aspects for your whole life. But as you grow older, your prefrontal But as you grow older and your prefrontal cortex fully forms, you realize that, you know what? These aspects are a core part of my identity that I simply cannot give up for life. Okay, let's use the example of a couple, okay? Partner A loves eating chicken rice, favorite food in the world. Partner B hates chicken rice, wouldn't touch it with a 5 feet pole. Initially, partner A might be like, okay, you know what? I can compromise. I can just not eat chicken rice when I'm with my partner. Anyway, there's so many other Singaporean foods that we can eat. We don't really have to eat chicken rice all the time, and I'm okay with that. But as the years go on, because the couple usually spends so much of their time together, partner A just ends up eating chicken rice almost never. And to make things worse, maybe partner B is the kind of partner that will consistently put down chicken rice. So partner A might feel that they are giving up so much of themselves for this relationship. And over time, this particular source of unhappiness ends up infiltrating and affecting other parts of the relationship. It's like when they quarrel, then partner A will bring up, but I'm giving up my love for chicken rice for you. And partner B may reply by saying that, hey, I never asked you to give up chicken rice for me. But then that just makes partner A even more upset, even angrier, because that basically discredits partner A's sacrifice throughout the years. And the fundamental issue of these kinds of intractable problems is that neither party is wrong nor correct, because it's a fact that partner A voluntarily made that sacrifice out of their love, and partner B might not have ever wanted partner A to make those sacrifices. But it is really such sources of incompatibility that even if they start out small, they might compound over the years and they just become bigger and bigger problems throughout. Yeah, but of course, we're just using chicken rice as an example. Now replace chicken rice with any other key trait or aspect of a relationship that is clearly much more important. So the point is that preferences develop and self-awareness grows over time, and it might be only later in the relationship that you realize that key sources of incompatibility are really causing both of you way too much distress. Therefore, the question that you should be asking yourself in deciding whether to stay or to leave is how much of yourself, your identity, your goals, your personality, your realm of possibilities are you giving up in order to stay in this relationship? And you also have to ask yourself is if you're able to live with that for life. The third reason why couples choose to break up is because they mature at different paces. Or some of them just don't mature at all. Again, this is so basic, it is almost laughable. So it could be that you expect your partner to change. Okay, I know this is so basic, right? That don't go into a relationship expecting the other person to change or expecting that you are capable of changing the other person. But the reality is simply that it's not always that straightforward. And some things, it makes sense for people to change over time, you know. Let me give you an easy example. Emotional maturity. Perhaps a 19-year-old girl at the start of a relationship expects her hot tempered boyfriend to mature over time, and by the time they get married, say like 10 years later, not be as quick to anger as he was when he was, say, 20 years old, right? But then you realize at 28 that his temper has not only not gotten better, but he has gotten worse. This may be causing very real problems in the relationship, such as violent tendencies on the guy's part that has been causing actual physical injuries on the girl. And as much as you said that she should have known, she could not have known. So, to give another example, it could be that partner A has always been extremely indecisive in the relationship. So, maybe he's very fickle minded, he can't decide what university course to take. When he was going for job interviews, he can't decide which job offer to accept. And then these at the start may appear like relatively minor problems that the couples can just plow through. But in your late 20s or 30s, right, this might manifest as an indecisiveness on which career path one should take. And it might result in that partner consistently finding himself at extremely junior roles because he doesn't like the industry, he want to change to another industry, then he want to take a third job and a fourth job and a fifth job, and thus his pay grade is always stuck at the junior level. And again, such things you would not have known at the earlier parts of a relationship because you simply don't have a crystal ball. And it's usually only at the doorstep of marriage that people really seriously consider all these traits and decide if these are aspects that they are able to live with for life, or it will cause the relationship to be unsustainable for the years ahead. It's like I might be able to take his temper for 3, 5, 7 years, but when I am about to get married, I ask, can I really deal with this for the rest of my life? Okay, by the way, guys, all these are not with reference to my ex, okay? All these are just hypotheticals. So the main point here is that in long-term relationships, breakups aren't necessarily about love having faded. It might be more of an issue of two people finally having to face reality. Because at that juncture, they have to reassess who they have become, what do they really want for now and for the future, and then decide if all the factors are aligned. And personally, for me, at the point of breaking up, a key question that I asked myself was, is the relationship that I have today still aligned with the life that I want tomorrow? And whether staying in the relationship was worth giving up all other alternative options I had. When I say alternatives, I don't just mean like better guys out there, okay, just to clarify. It's more of about the lifestyle that I could lead, or the options that I could explore, the adventures that I could go on, or say what it means to marry your partner. Because as much as some people may disagree, when you're marrying someone, depending on your family and depending on your culture, you are also accepting a lot of implicit responsibilities. It could be anything from caretaking responsibility. So maybe you need to take care of the other person's parents, the other person's family, or it could be expectations of parenthood, right? Like maybe your parents or the other party's parents expect you all to have X number of children within X number of years. So you have to decide if you are willing to sacrifice all the other alternative lifestyles in exchange for that life that you're now marrying into. So I'm very curious about what you guys think. Do you generally agree with the reasons that I have raised? Do you disagree? Have you had similar experiences? Also, do you have any other stories about long-term couples breaking up? Or if you had gone through one yourself, what's your reason for leaving the relationship? And finally, at what point do you think that staying in a relationship becomes an act of commitment whereas leaving becomes an act of honesty to yourself? Let me know in the comments down below.